Hi, lovely audience of Visa Franchise. Welcome back to our, I think, first in-person podcast episode here in Miami. I'm here with Joaquin Rosales Aramburu, immigration attorney, working as legal counsel here at Visa Franchise. And my name is Aladdin. It's actually Aladdin Kilic, or Kilic as they say. Americans really can't pronounce my name. I'm having a hard time with this. But for you guys, you can just call me Aladdin. And I'm hoping to, I hope that you guys are going to see me more by doing these videos. But today's episode, we actually want to take a deeper dive into the U.S. immigration system or industry. What do you call it? It's a vast,
system.
Things of its own. I have a rundown here of what we're going to talk about. Essentially, I'm assuming we're going to talk about the EB-2 NIW green card process, but I just want to roll the ball and start, because we can go many ways here, right, Joaquin? But I want to address this issue first. We're 5 days away from the US elections, right? And both candidates are talking about immigration. I think it's like the second most talked about subject out there.
After the economy, yeah. Probably.
Right. Democrats have a view on it. Republicans have a view on it. Elon Musk came out and spoke about it. Donald Trump comes up and he says stuff like, I think anybody graduates U.S. universities, they should be getting a green card. There are different views out there. So I would like to, first of all, have your opinion of, in the likelihood of, let's say, both candidates winning, what are we looking at? 6th of November 6th, what kind of an outlook are we going to have in the U.S. immigration system?
Well, there's going to be some very sort of polar opposite views when it comes to the immigration system. I mean, judging from the past administration and what it's being talked about right now in the campaign trail, it seems that, at least on the Trump side, they really want to double down on cracking down on immigration, whichever that might be, whether it be, undocumented immigrants coming in, or even sort of being more conservative in allowing, for example, like spouses of people who have visas here in the United States, like the L visa, it was restricted a little bit, so the spouses wouldn't be allowed to actually work. So overall, it's going to be very consequential. I think that there's been some work that has attempted to address the issue, but for political reasons, it didn't really carry through Congress. It was pretty much shut down in the Senate. But I think that it really does play to, both political bases, and it gets people really riled up, as you can tell, right?
Right.
So, on one side, like I said, there's talk of mass deportations. There's talk of, clamping down on immigrants all across the United States. On the other side, as well, there's a perception that there's, no sort of interest in trying to address the issues pertaining to security, the border. I think there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation, probably on both sides, but certainly a little bit more on another side, related to what sort of a threat is. I mean, you're from Turkey, right? Constantinople. Right? Rome, all the huge empires around the world, they attracted people, and they're always going to be a magnet towards what the power of the world is, right? Yeah. So that's something that's not going to, rescind anytime soon. It's going to, draw down anytime soon. So there's different approaches. Like I said, the executive has a lot of leeway in deciding how do you approach it, right? And it seems like, one side certainly wants to take it to the extreme where a lot of people are going to be potentially deported. I don't even know how that's, logistically, possible. There's talk about, maybe costing around $330 billion to try to do this.
Oh my God.
So look, it's certainly a problem. It's something that is probably the most talked about topic when it comes to politics right now. I mean, besides the economy.
That was what I was getting at. I mean, now, talking about immigration, and to be very honest with you, when you're putting together a political discourse, right, you got to move your audience, your voter base, right? And sometimes you just got to, you have a very one-sided approach to be able to resonate the message through masses. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of people who are not as well versed about immigration as you are. They don't understand this, right?
Right.
And people come up with arguments to be able to move that kind of voter block and say, hey, we got illegals coming in. They're coming in from mental institutions and in very, very bad places and all that. But again, the very same people who are saying that, right, are talking about, like Donald Trump, for example. He's saying, well, I think anybody who graduates a U.S. university should be given a green card, right? Which is, wow, okay. I thought these guys were against immigration, but now they're talking about, facilitating immigration. So it's kind of, I'd say, take it with a pinch of salt. This is what my understanding is, right? And I always have a third eye view, an outsider view to the U.S. immigration system, that this is a nation of immigrants, right? And in both parties, there are types of immigrants that they want and the types of immigrants they maybe hesitate, in type of immigration that, resonates with a lot of people, which happens to be our topic of discussion today. We'll be talking about green cards, because what it seems to me on both fronts, that everybody wants talent to come to America. America wants to attract top talent. America wants to attract investors. They want to attract entrepreneurs, people who will set up companies here, employ Americans, create jobs, pay taxes, take the country forward in one way or the other. And they came up with this amazing immigration system. I think it's truly amazing and remarkable coming from another country and seeing here. You Americans are a bit spoiled, to be honest with you. You guys don't know how blessed you are. It's a legit system, man. It's got, yes, maybe sometimes it's hard to navigate and it's got its own challenges, like everything. But when you look at it, I mean, we're going to talk about employment-based visas today. EB-1, EB-1A, EB-1C, EB-2, EB-2 NIW, EB-3, EB-5, EB-5 in different categories. I mean, just the other day we were at the conference. So it's a little overwhelming, right? But from time to time, one of these visa categories, are being picked up by companies or big law, and then it's being thrown out there as this is your lowest hanging fruit to get the green card. Right. Now, today, we'll be focusing primarily on one of them called EB-2 and EB-2 NIW. And I would like to get your opinions on first of all, how did employment-based green cards came about? What is it that USCIS is looking for? And at the second category of EB-2 NIW, what are we talking about?
Well, yeah, so that's a really good question. So essentially, the system was established, and as the letter suggests, it's EB, employment based, right? So there was obviously an important issue that had to be addressed, and that was the issue of the lack of potential people that can sort of push the economy forward, and also attract people who are very talented to this country, right? At the same time, companies around the country didn't have the sort of brain power within the United States, right, to sort of expand, right? You see all these big companies like Google who are bringing in through different routes of immigration.
All the CEOs, look at all the CEOs of the tech companies.
Yeah, exactly. So they're from across the world. So basically that was a main point in the essence of employment-based visas. So you have to sort of, the EB-2 NIW is sort of it's a self-petition visa, but it's grounded on the employment-based visas, and the process of employment-based visas, right, essentially starts with you petitioning, you meaning a company, right, having to be the sponsor of an employee that you want, a foreigner that you want to bring in here to the United States, right, and you have to deal with 3 different entities governmental entities when you want to do this process. You got to deal with the Department of Labor. So the job of the Department of Labor, right, is to make sure that Americans are not being disadvantaged when it comes to the workforce, right? So as part of that process, which is a complex process, and then sort of pretty prolonged process, right? You have to deal with the Department of Labor, where you have to first get their blessing in order for you to sponsor someone outside of the United States, right? So that's called a labor certification. And essentially, it's a process in which the company states that they want a specific person for this specific position, right? They have to submit what is called the prevailing wage request to the Department of Labor. And what that does is that it protects Americans, because obviously you would imagine that everybody, as we said, they want to, the most powerful country is always going to be a magnet to people across the world. So they want to protect American jobs, even green card holder jobs as well. So the way to do this is to submit this prevailing wage to the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor determines what wage should be paid for that specific position, for that category, right? And the geographical location that you're going to be working at.
This is the PERMs.
The labor certification.
The labor certification.
So what they're trying to protect is basically the ability of companies just saying, hey, we have this position, but it's at, I don't know, $60,000 when it should be $100,000 a year, right?
Yes.
And then that way, it dissuades basically the American who is in a position, who knows their talent, right? And who would typically apply for that type of a job, but the American doesn't do it because they're not paying well enough. So that first part of the process is to make sure that you're paying a wage that to the government should be paid for that particular position, and then it's not a disadvantage to an American who's applying.
It's anybody's game.
Right. It's anybody's game.
And the job post stays there.
So that's the second part. So that's the recruiting part. So after they give you the prevailing wage, they say for this particular position that you want to hire for, you should be paying X amount of money for it, right? So then the second part of it is the recruiting part. So depending on which category, right, everything varies, but in essence, what you have to do is that the company has to place ads in the newspapers, right? Right. Typically is, 2 consecutive Sunday ads.
Who reads those newspapers, man?
Nobody, which is actually advantageous to a lot of people who are doing the process, because it's a little bit archaic when it comes to how they want to manage the recruitment process. So that's one step of it. The other step is they have to put in for 30 days, ads on the local unemployment offices, right? Right. About the position that is available. The other one is basically what it's called an internal posting, right? So if you have a company and, whatever, maybe even a 5 people company or a 500 people company, you have to have an internal posting where you're saying, hey, you're advertising within the company. We have this position open. If there's anybody in here that thinks that they can qualify for this position, you go ahead and you apply, right? Right. So all this is basically done and has been molded in order to protect American jobs, right? Right. And then only when you can demonstrate that you're unable to find Americans that can fill in those positions, then at that point they say, you know what, we're going to approve your labor certification, and that's your golden ticket company in order for you to actually begin now the immigration process. So we were dealing with a labor process, right? After the Department of Labor gives its blessing, then you move on to USCIS, right? Which is the entity that adjudicates the immigration, most of the immigration petitions. Then you move on to either a consular processing or an adjustment of status, which means that you can basically do your residency, the last steps of your residency process here in the United States, and already start working, because once you submit the adjustment of status, you can petition for a work permit, which will allow you to start working at the job that wants you to work there while the process is still pending. Right. Right. So that's basically, the perm side labor EB-2 certification. So then they said, well, look, there's a lot of people who, shouldn't have to go through this entire process, right? There's a lot of people that we want to attract, right? Who are of national importance, right? National interest, right? So then that's essentially where the EB-2 NIW comes in, or the EB-1. Those are the ones which we call self-petitions. You don't need a sponsor. You're essentially telling the government that you want people like me. Right. You want people to be part of the American society, because we're only going to aid the economy. We're only going to promote, social sort of ideals that, are in line with the American, dream, and how this country, at least likes to be, right? We're perfect, we're working always towards a perfect union, but we're not a perfect union. So that's the idea behind basically having these visas.
But let me ask you a question right there. Sure. National importance. It's a subject that is open for interpretation. That is correct. At least what my understanding is, right? Because think about it. We're living in 2024. the life is changing at an unprecedented speed. Look at AI, right?
Yep.
50% of the jobs are going to go away in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, people are giving different figures and whatever. What is a national importance today was probably not a national importance or considered as a national importance category whenever those particular laws came about, because it's something that keeps changing all the time.
Yes.
Hence, the question is, how do you prove that one person would serve for America's national interest?
There is a level of subjectivity to it, right?
Yeah.
And discretion is a very discretion-based application. You're dealing with a human being, right? An agent of USCIS who's going to be reviewing your petition, right? It's not like you have a panel. It's not like it goes through different people, right? It typically is one agent. It might get transferred to a different agent because, that other agent has too many cases. But in the end, you're dealing with a human being, so that level of subjectivity, plays a part of it, right? But in the end, they do have guidelines, right? And they have criteria they sort of guide themselves through, but they make the final determination. There's been sort of directives, right, and initiatives by administrations. This current administration put out a directive where essentially they said, hey, USCIS, we really want people that come from, the STEM background, right?
Mm-hmm.
Science, technology, engineering, et cetera, mathematics. So they say push to approve these type of people, right? We want these type of people in the United States. So very important is that you have to demonstrate that it's going to have sort of an impact in the nation. And I know that might seem a little sort of intimidating as a word, right? Like, oh, I'm going to impact the entire country. Not particularly the entire country, but you might be a piece of a bigger pie, right? Mm-hmm. That is working towards that, right?
I really like the analogy of you might be a piece in a bigger picture.
Exactly.
You yourself may not be that big of a deal, not that hot shot,
right?
But when you put the profile together and everything, and whatever the current initiatives are, and wherever the economy is going, and maybe this type of person will be needed.
Yeah, for sure. So I was going to talk about an example, which this client, obviously I can't say for privacy issues anything too much in detail, but what he does is that essentially he does vertical farming.
Vertical
farming. And what was basically the argument that we made is that essentially, in America, especially here in Florida, you're utilizing a lot of land, right? Which takes out a lot of resources like water, right? You're also sort of exploiting the land, right? And then you're taking a lot of resources, a lot of manpower is needed as well, right? And not only that, but there's a pretty huge percentage of imports that we bring in terms of, sort of vegetables, and all the, fruits and all the different things that, perhaps we're not that good at, growing in here. So what he does is that, he has, a big place where you can just have like stacks, right, of plants, and you grow them in there. And then it takes a substantially lower amount of, water, right? A substantially lower amount of actual pieces of land, right? And a substantially lower amount of manpower in order to produce, high yields of, vegetables and fruits that are of national importance to this country, right? It's nationally important. Now, part of the EB-2 NIW is that you have a proposed endeavor. You say, you're great. You already proved to me that you're great, right? Throughout different criteria. Now tell me, how are you going to do it? Right. So going back to, the analogy of the slice of the piece of the pie, we put forth, a proposed endeavor and where, in certain regions of Florida, he's going to be able to do this. And then this might permeate throughout the United States, and hopefully it will, right? Mm-hmm. And so it goes back to, it doesn't have to have sort of like a national impact already, right? Mm-hmm. From the get-go, but little by little, that idea is going to sort of spread out, and is going to hopefully, grow even more and expand even more, and then do what the purpose of the visa is, right? To bring in people who are going to make this country better.
What you're saying is very interesting, because proposed endeavor and national interest, there's a level of subjectivity there. Is it not so important then to work with an immigration attorney or immigration professionals who are really and truly can put the, puzzle together and come up with the strategy. And that strategy would then be your pitch to the USCIS, right?
Yeah.
Give us a bit of an insight of what this institution is. Who works there? And what are these people looking for with the NIW? So when you're putting these cases together, I don't know, do you need to make it as simple as possible, as understandable as possible? Because I assume that those visa officers who are reviewing the cases, they may or may not be as well versed about that particular area of expertise.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, maybe
you're
you need to dumb
right.
it down. I don't know.
USCIS is, it's a federal government entity. It's under the Department of Homeland Security. And then it's basically the entity that processes, most of the applications for immigration.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to what we were originally sort of focusing on is that you're absolutely right. I mean, the people who are working there are not well versed in every single different, field out there, right? Like,
of course,
you don't know
Neither
about
you
engineer,
are, nor I am.
nor am I. Exactly. So, I might know, legal immigration stuff, business immigration stuff, but I don't know about engineering. I don't know about IT. I'm horrible at technology. I ask you all the time, help me out here. I don't even know how to do this.
I know.
And but the key is that there's got to be sort of a balance, right? There's got to be, the ability to put it in layman terms when you're trying to make your arguments to the agents, to USCIS about your case. And at the same time, you have to be sort of very specific and detail oriented when you're working with professionals that know what they're doing. So they know and they sort of submerge themselves into your field. So they have a really good basis to go off and make their arguments in a manner that's going to be very well received by the agents who are going to be approving or denying these cases, right?
I mean, I guess this is what my understanding. What you're saying is, keep it simple, right? And make those people's jobs easier. Let's play a little game here. If you're a vendor, if you're selling me something, right? You will like me if I make you money, right? If I buy more from you, you'll be happy.
Right.
But if you're in a position where you're salaried, you're a government employee, you can't make money, the only way I can benefit you is to save your time. If person X is taking 50 minutes of your time or 2 hours of your time, and Aladdin shows up with the petition or whatever, look, I'm here 15 minutes. I'm giving you the essence of it. I got all the evidence and everything, but 15 minutes, I'm going to save you an amazing time. Here is everything detailed with all the evidence, and this is why it makes sense. Keep it very, very simple so that people can relate to and understand. Would you say that if you are to take an approach like this for your EB-1s, O-1s, or any other employment-based green cards, would the outcome be more positive?
So once again, like I said, there's
or
two.
am I just bullshitting?
Well,
I don't know.
there's two.
Straight up.
Like I said, there's two
you know?
schools of thought. Like I said, first off, you have to understand that at the same time, immigration attorneys are also sort of trying to cover their ass, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because and this is one of the major sort of and contentious topics within this discussion is that, if you submit something that is quote unquote simple, right, to make it easier for the agent at the same time, it might be rejected because you weren't thorough enough and you didn't put forth enough evidence, right?
Yeah.
And then they're going to come back and say to you, oh, because you didn't do your job correctly, right? I wasn't approved. Too. So it's like that balance.
Okay,
there's a balance to it, right?
There's no easy way out.
There's no easy way out, exactly.
There's no easy way out. You got to read that 1,000 pages, that's...
Well, I mean, they might not read the 1,000 pages, but, they might sort of go through what they think is important, right? But at least you're giving them a well-rounded sort of petition, and then they just might be of the school of thought where I think, memberships in distinguished organizations are more important, it might... out of all the criterias, right? Mm-hmm. Or remuneration, the amount of money that you make might be the most important to me. So they might focus, really in depth about that specific argument of that particular criteria. But at least you're giving them all the different criterias, all the different arguments for it. So that's why I tell you it's a very contentious debate within the immigration community, because some other ones are saying, you're an idiot. You're wasting your time. You're wasting paper, because you're not e-filing this stuff, at least for the EB-2
But right
and
now
NIW.
they can, right?
No, not for the EB-2 and NIW. You got to mail it in. Mail it in. So so it's like a bulk like this.
I know.
So this is an ongoing thing.
I've been through all that stuff. I got, as you know, I came into this country with 01 visa. My petition was what, 500 pages?
Yeah.
400 or 500 pages. And I remember this. So I went to the consulate. I got approved here by the USCIS with premium processing, and I went to the consulate. It's an extraordinary ability visa. And I was kind of a little bit of a scared by the name extraordinary ability. I mean, first of all, what is an extraordinary ability, right? I mean, if you're a marathon runner, you can run 100 meters under 9 seconds. That's an extraordinary ability. Right. Or, talk about, I have a beautiful voice that I could hit highest of the highest notes that no male can hit. That's an exceptional ability. So I show up, I'm at the consulate, this visa officer, very nice lady, by the way. She's asking, okay, so you're applying for 01? I say, yeah, I'm applying for 01. She goes like, exceptional ability. I said, well, yeah, exceptional ability, yeah. She goes like, what's your exceptional ability? You know what I said? I said, I knew he was going to ask this question. And I knew, I prepared an answer. I'm risking it all. I'm betting it all on black. I said, I don't have an exceptional ability. And at that point, I was either going to crack her up a little bit or she was going to reject it. Well, if you don't have an exceptional ability, why are you applying for exceptional ability? Go away. But luckily, she cracked up a little bit, and she was like, okay, so what's your case? I said, okay, let me tell you why I'm applying for this visa. And then we went through, all the criteria and the kind of petition that we put, my background and how we appealed and everything. And she said, okay, this is, you got great achievements in the world of business, based on your age and stuff like that. All good, approved, thank you, right? But the moment they asked, what's your extraordinary ability? I said, I can fly. You can't say stuff like that. So it's very scary to a lot of people. And a lot of people think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are kind of intimidated by the wording of exceptional ability.
Yeah.
Would you like to shed some light on what is it that USCIS wants with the word exceptional ability? What is exceptional ability for them?
It's a criteria, right? It really, you have to make a convincing argument, right, that you are above the average in your field. You're way above your average in your field, right? And it's interesting that you brought up extraordinary ability because, as the word
it was
says,
extraordinary ability.
For the O is extraordinary ability. For the EB-2 NIW is exceptional ability. But then, there's some people that can apply for, say, the EB-1, which the wording is extraordinary ability, right? But they might be able to get that residency through the EB-1, but if they apply for the EB-2 NIW, they won't. Why? Because of the national interest part and because of the proposed endeavor part, which is two different components, right? They're very scrutinized, right? Mm-hmm. And it's different than, say, the EB-1, where they say, yes, you have to be extraordinary and all these different criteria. And if you meet a certain amount of criteria and you prove, at least to that particular agent that he thinks that you have met that criteria, then you're good. You don't have to prove anything else about, national interest, importance, how you're going to do it over here. It's just simply based on your acumen, right? It's based on what you've done. It's based in the past. Whereas the EB-2 NIW is not only your past, right? Your achievements, but then what are you going to do in the future? So that's the difference, right? And the national importance, national interest part, which is, very important in the process. So you might have a person, and I mean, not to diminish whatsoever, say one professional lawyer, but just an example, you might be, I don't know, maybe an artist or I don't know, an athlete, right? And, you're extraordinary.
Yeah.
And, you're, I don't know, the best soccer player, whatever it may be, the best painter, whatever it may be. And then, of course, you will get an EB-1. That's amazing. Absolutely, we want people like that in here. But then you might apply for an EB-2 NIW, and then an officer might say, look, it's amazing and it's remarkable, all the things that you've done, right? But how is this of national interest to this country? Well, how is this important?
Yeah.
And then some really good attorneys will say, in the arts, you want to promote arts, right? You want to promote all these different things. And, within the United States, it's not only something based on, economics, and money and all that. You want to promote, cultural, things in here. But, you can certainly find a lot of obstacles because it'll be a harder sell to try to convince some officers that, these professions are of national interest, and that you're going to have a proposed endeavor, right? That it's going to, that you're going to be able to do here in the United States, and you'll be able to sort of, aid to the society and make this country better.
Sure, of course. Here's another question. There is about a misconception now. I mean, I don't even know if it's a misconception, but this is what people say, right? So you need to have a master's degree, you need to have a PhD, you need to have a lot of publications to be able to qualify for EB-2 NIW. What's the sort of categorization? Because I know, EB-2 category, you got different levels. Even in EB-1, you got even religious workers, right?
Yeah,
some religious workers can qualify as EB-1, right?
Not the religious workers, but yeah, I mean, like I said, each category has like subcategories.
Yes,
right?
each category has.
So and you have the EB-1A, EB-1C, which is mostly for like researchers and stuff like that, right?
Right.
And then and that's a B. I'm sorry. And then the C is for executives, right? When you have this big companies across the world and they want to bring in big executives here for their companies here in the United States.
But when it comes to EB-2 NIW, do you need to have a master's degree? Or so here's the thing: do you need to have a master's degree? Or say you have a master's degree, is that going to qualify you?
So this is where a lot of people, I don't want to say get bamboozled. Let me use that word, right?
Get what?
Bamboozled, it means essentially that you're getting tricked.
Okay.
You're getting tricked because essentially what it does say, right, is that you either have an advanced degree,
right,
or you have exceptional abilities, right? Okay. So the sale, when you actually look at the letter of the law, right, and you go into USCIS, they separate it into two. So it's really easy to make a sale, right, and say, look, you have an advanced degree. Read it right there. If you have an advanced degree, then you're going to be approved. But they're not mentioning the part of how do you prove that you are of a national interest. And that goes into the criteria that you have to meet in order to show that, right? Right. What is your acumen? What have you done? Are you part of,
or what are you going to do?
Exactly. What are you going to do, which is a proposed endeavor, right? So they don't tell you about that part, right? So they basically will sell these big firms, and they're doing a very good job across the world because everybody's asking, I want to do EB-2 NIW. I have a doctorate.
You got a master's degree?
I want to do it. I want to do it. But what else have you done? If you don't have publications about yourself, about your work, right? If you don't have a, special license to do the work that you do, right? If you're not a member of distinguished organizations, right? If you're not getting paid a lot of money for the work that you do, right? Just because you have a master's, you're not going to get approved.
You said something good. I said how you're going to do. So do you need to, and this is, again, I keep hearing these rumors and stuff from people, and I always want to run it by people who have studied this particular field. And I hear right now, if you don't have a company in America, you don't get EB-2 NIW. Is EB-2 NIW becoming exclusively for people who are having a company or an entity or some sort of an engagement in America already?
No, I mean, not in particular. So essentially, this goes to the point of the proposed endeavor, right? And essentially, it's to keep it very simple, is what are you going to be doing here in the United States, right? Right. If you're going to be, say, whether you're, I don't know, maybe on the finance side or the tech side, I'm going to create a company, right? And this company is going to do A, B, C, and D. It's going to work with different entities. That might be governmental entities, right? We might work with, if we're in tech, we might work with, Department of Defense. We might work with these other private companies that need people like us, consultants like us. So that might be one route. On the professional plan side, you say, I've always worked for, big, governmental entities, right? Or big, sort of private entities, right? So my plan, what I'm going to be proposing, right, is that I'm going to go and seek these type of jobs, right? That need people like me, right? There's a lack of people like me in these industries, right? And this is how I'm going to demonstrate it through this professional plan. So, it's really important and it's become very crucial and an integral part of the process itself to demonstrate how you're going to do so. And the way that you do so is through either a professional plan, right? Or a business plan.
But even if you demonstrate that, Joaquin, even if they say, okay, you're of national interest.
Yeah.
We like you here. We want to give you a green card. We approve you. But you're going to have to wait a lifetime to get a green card. Now, let's talk about retrogression.
Yeah.
You always send me this link, Visa Bulletin.
Yeah.
We go in there, what is current, what isn't current, EB categories and everything. Even if you get approved, whether through PERM, labor certification, or whether through EB-2 NIW, if you're born in India, in China, oh my God.
It's a huge backlog.
It's a huge, what are you talking about? 10 years, 15 years?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And some people say that don't even look at it. It's never going to come.
Every single other visa category, right? Including especially, the employment base, they have an allotted amount of visas. And of course, there's a lot of people who are applying for it. And in China and India, they obviously found out about this a very long time ago. And there's people who have been waiting, ages in order to be in line to be, they've been approved, right? But there's not a visa available. So each month, the Department of State comes out with a visa bulletin where basically it says, hey, look, based on the amount of petitions that we're getting in right now, the amount of petitions that we were able to process, we're giving you an estimate that now we're basically going through March of 2021, whatever it may be, right? So then that gives you sort of a view as to how long they're taking into processing these visas, right? And depending on your country, it might be way longer than any other country.
Is the root cause because there are a limited amount of green cards?
Yeah.
Okay. Why would you have a limited amount of green cards? I mean, so this is so funny. Let me tell you. So you're telling me, I want you to prove me that you're of national importance. You have an exceptional ability. You got a degree. You got a this, that. But, and you can still work in America, right? On this visa or that. But I'm going to let you live in that limbo for 10 years or live in that limbo for 5 years.
Yeah, I mean,
how does this make sense?
It doesn't make sense.
Look, I don't know if it's the Congress, they're coming up with.
So
I don't know what the decision makers are doing, right? And this is when, hearing Elon Musk the other day and hey, you just got to facilitate that stuff.
We go back to the political thing, right? It's very hard to pass any legislation, right, when it comes to immigration, especially given how polarized this country is when it comes to politics. And I mean, without Congress, you can't do anything. You can, broaden, the amount of visas that are available for each category, right? So without that, you can't do anything. So I agree with you completely. There's a lot of people who are very talented, right? A lot of brain power out there. And, I think it should be expanded.
So you're basically telling those people this, okay, we're going to allow you to live and work in America while we're processing your green card and everything, but you're going to be on this H-1B, which is tied to this employer. If you lose your job, you got 60-day grace period and everything. So in a way, how are these people going to be entrepreneurial? In order for you to be entrepreneurial, the number one thing you need, you need security, safety and security. And in your situation should be stable.
Yeah.
If you're in an unstable ground, how are you going to take risks? You can't take risks. And if you can't take risks, basically the spirit of entrepreneurialism, wouldn't be there. Luckily, America is a country of entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of entrepreneurial visas out there and whatever. But at the end of the day, to me, the retrogression, I mean, look, you're an immigration attorney. I'm not. You're a U.S. citizen. I'm not. I'm here. I'm looking at it from a third world, I was going to say, third eye perspective. Is that, dude, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if they hear about it or not. But okay, let's say there are maybe ways to ease the pain, like a little bit of painkiller, right? It's called premium processing for EB-2 NIWs. Yeah, you still have a 1.5-year backlog, but hey, you can get an answer in 45 days. First of all, how much does that save you in terms of time, right? Second of all, does that put another pressure on the visa officer who is reviewing your case?
Yeah, well, it certainly saves you time because I mean the average timing, I've seen anywhere between 8 months to over a year to get an answer if you don't do premium processing.
Really?
So premium processing on the EB-2
Can you do premium processing on perms as well?
You cannot. Only on the I-140 part.
Okay.
Only on the second part, not the labor certification part. You can't do that.
But NIW, you can.
Yeah, you can do for EB-2 NIW. It's 45 days as opposed to EB-1 where it's 15 days, right? So yeah, if it makes sense, right? Right now there's a backlog for everybody around the world for at least a year and a half, right?
Right.
But in certain circumstances, it might make sense, right? If you want to get sort of an answer, you want to sort of be done with it, right? And once again, there's two schools of thought. They think, I mean, some immigration attorneys think that you're putting a lot of pressure into these agents, and so what you're looking for essentially is for you to get an RFE, so which is a request for evidence, and then they just want to sort of kick the can down the road because they don't have enough time to really go through it, so they just throw you an RFE, which is it's a pain in the ass, okay. Right? And then that way they buy themselves time and they're able to just continue their work and not fall behind. There's another school of thought that says no, if you have a really good in the petition, you should submit it via premium processing, especially, if it's current. Right now, it's not current, but when it used to be current. And once again, like I said, this changes every month. So, within 6 months, it might be that it's going to be current for EB-2 NIW for the rest of the world. So that makes sense. You want to find out, immediately. This is a life-changing decision. You got to, move your family over here, right? Or finally, you'll be able to be a resident if you're in a different visa and you want to adjust. So you want to find out quickly, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's certainly always two sides of the coin and two different schools of thought about it. But yeah, certainly premium processing could be very helpful.
Of course. Look, I mean, I think we talked about retrogression. We talked about premium processing. We talked about proposed endeavor. We talked about substantial merit. We talked about national importance. We talked about pretty much everything, right? Now let's be a bit more practical here. People who are searching for some answers online, obviously, there's a lot of information out there. But if you are to provide people some sort of a timeline, right? I-140s, DS-160s, and there are too many forms out there. And for people like me who are illiterate in the immigration world, I would want you to explain to me how long an EB-2 NIW process would take and what would my life look like being on another visa, right? And I'm applying for the EB-2 NIW. What do I do? At one point, I'm like, oh, okay, it's approved. I can just relax. It's just a matter of time. Or at one point, I still have that anxious waiting.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on each person's circumstances, right? If you are here on a visa, whether it be an H-1B or, an L, maybe there's people who are here on student visa, right? But a student visa doesn't allow you to work, right? So that's like a very touchy subject, H-1B. Right? So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, anxiety, obviously, on the part of, you, especially if you have a family, right? There's a retrogression right now. So the fact that, you are clinging to your ability to stay in this country through a company, it's pretty nerve-wracking, right? Because I mean, if the company fires you, then you're pretty much done unless you're able to find another company that will hire you in the same position that you were approved by, right? So yeah, I mean, it creates a lot of tension and nervousness, and like I said, this is something that is constantly changing. So hopefully, it's not going to be the reality, but it's part of the process. It's just simply how it is.
But essentially, say I built my petition for the case for EB-2 NIW today. And then we send it over, we do premium processing. 45 days later, I get an answer, whether it is approved or denied or RFE. Say it is approved.
Yep.
How does my life look like from then on? What are the steps? Am I, first of all, secure in America? Am I still, let's say, under the leash of the employer? Or could I just relax?
Depending on which country it is. But let's just assume that it's not India or China, for example, right?
Okay.
Right. So then at that point, I would say that you should feel pretty happy, right?
Really?
Yeah, because, there might be, maybe a year and a half wait or something like that, right? But at least you got the hardest part done with. it has been recognized, right, that you're not a person of exceptional ability, right, and of national importance or national interest, right? So the hard part is done, right? And yes, you might be nervous because you're clinging on to this one particular job now that's giving you opportunity to stay here in the United States. But in the end, the petition was approved. So if you encounter a situation where you no longer have a job, you no longer can find another job where you can maintain status in here. Well, I mean, the worst that could happen is that you're going to have to go back to your country, maybe wait a year, right? And then go and do consular processing and be able to come in here with your residency after doing the consular processing.
Can you change jobs with the status here?
Depending on which visa you're in here. So it's all circumstantial.
Are you still on that? Okay, say you're an H-1B. You applied for EB-2 NIW, got approved, doing change of status. What status are you on? Are you on a green card status?
So when you're getting a residency, you don't change status. When you're applying from one visa, right, a non-immigrant visa to an immigrant visa, which is a residency, you don't change status. You adjust your status. Right?
Adjust status.
So you're adjusting your status. So yeah. So essentially, I mean, the process is if the category, right, of that particular visa you're applying for, right, is not on retrogression at that point, the second is not in retrogression, right? And then you can file for adjustment status. And at that point, right, you can also petition for a work permit. The second you get the work permit, which typically doesn't take as long as the adjustment of status, maybe 3 months for you to get it. At that point, you're scot-free. Yeah. Because you can work and you're not clinging on to, that particular company. You can work in pretty much in anything. It doesn't have to even be the same company that you are in, because you're doing a self-petition. So after you get your work authorization, you can work in whatever you want, right? And then you get the process adjudicated, and you get your green card, and you're good to go.
All right. Cool. Well, I mean, Joaquin, this has been a very lovely discussion.
Thank you.
And what my understanding is, and I always want to represent the side of people who are foreign to the U.S. immigration, or people who understand U.S. immigration and can understand what those connotations mean, H-1B, what does O means, EB means, but again, there are subcategories and everything. If I am to basically summarize that, EB-2 National Interest Waiver is a type of a green card where you need to show America or why you're needed here, what are you going to be doing here, and and why they should basically let you in, and you build a petition and you build a pitch. Correct. It's like absolutely, like a job posting. Hey,
that's exactly what it is.
This is my thing. Here's my pitch.
You're essentially saying, hey, you need me here. You want me here. You want a person like me with my achievements, right? With my talents to be here. Right. You want people like me in your country. Here it is, and this is how I'm going to demonstrate it to you. Okay, that's the core of it.
All right. Well, Joaquin, thank you very much. It's been a lovely discussion. I'd like to do this more. And guys, if you were able to stick to the until the very end of this video, well, I definitely appreciate you. That means that we were able to provide you some information. And if you were able to get some value out of this video, hey, give back. Just maybe a like, a comment, and maybe some suggestions for the next show. Maybe a naming suggestion for the show. I don't know how many more episodes we're gonna do. We're just basically gonna see the reaction of how you guys react to the show. And if we see like, you know what, there's good reaction and everything, let's keep coming back here. Let's keep filming more episodes. And whatever you guys have on your mind, just drop your questions down the comment section below, because that is content for us. That's how we navigate. We know that, okay, these people want to know this. Let's sit down and talk about this particular thing. Again, thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.